Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Aisha, your host. Dr. Shabir picked up an intriguing book for our show today, Islam and the Future of Tolerance. This book is a dialogue of sorts by two authors, a famous atheist and a former radical. Without giving away any more details, let's sit down with Dr. Shabir Ally to get his thoughts on what I would say sounds like quite a controversial topic. Welcome to the show, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on.
So I have to say, when you sent me an email saying you're reviewing the book Islam and Future of Tolerance, I had to Google it a couple of times to make sure I was looking up the right book, because the author, one of the authors, is Sam Harris, and I know of him to be an atheist who's critical of religion. So what caused you to pick up the book or inspired you? I don't know what the word is.
Well, I mean, the fact that he's critical of religion doesn't prevent me from reading his works and from even reviewing his works on this show. And in fact, I have in mind that perhaps in a future episode we'll review his book on free will. In any case, the book at hand is not only by Sam Harris, but also by Maajid Nawaz. It's co-authored. And the entire book is a dialogue between the two of them, between these two authors. Maajid Nawaz, the other author, is also the author of Radical, a book in which he describes his own life's journey into radicalization, and then out of that into now normative Islam. And in this book, he mentions some of that history as well to show his competence in dealing with radicalization and what it means for Islam and the question of tolerance. The title of the book, as you know, is Islam and the Future of Tolerance.
So it sounds like you have two authors who are from two very different extremes of the spectrum. What sort of arguments do they both bring to the table in the form of a dialogue?
Mm-hmm. In a way, it's almost a debate in the form of a dialogue. They go back and forth. It's almost a continuing conversation. And from the book itself, it's not clear how the book came to be composed like this. Did they sit down and talk to each other, and then somebody wrote down, transcribed everything they said? Or did they correspond with each other by email, and then this is the collection of all of their emails back and forth? Or did they set up a blog somewhere, or something like a wiki site on which
does it come off as an actual dialogue, or is it one segment is this person, and so there's no real flow kind of thing?
There's a real flow. It's just that it's not documented how exactly they put this dialogue together. Mm-hmm. But that's a minor point. It reads from beginning to end as one person says this and the other person says this. One person says, it's now Sam Harris, it's now Maajid Nawaz, back to Sam, back to Maajid. What is important is that Maajid Nawaz was in a dialogue with Shabir Ally. And at the end of this dialogue, Sam Harris said to Maajid, well, you know what you said on stage there sounds all nice and dandy, but isn't it a little bit devious? In other words, he's saying that, okay, Maajid Nawaz painted this good picture of Islam being tolerant, but in doing so, is he really saying something just to pander to the crowd, whereas in fact Maajid Nawaz should know better and should know that deep down at the roots Islam really is about violence and intolerance. And that sparked the entire series of back and forths here that we have, in which Maajid Nawaz is basically on the defensive, but he presents a very capable defense, showing that in fact Islam is about peace and not about violence. It is about tolerance, and it is against intolerance.
So do you think the book does lend itself to being an effective dialogue? Because I think online, when I was reading some of the Amazon reviews, it says it does a great job of doing that. So do you think it's effective in communicating both sides of the argument and giving perspectives to both in a valid form?
Yes, in fact, it would seem that Maajid has the bulk of responses here, or his responses are generally longer. Christopher Hitchens has nothing to defend, so he just simply, Sam Harris has nothing to defend. He just simply puts forth his criticisms and comments and objections and questions, and his snide remarks as well. But Maajid would come back and he would offer his capable defense. I wish that at times that Maajid would also question Sam Harris's atheistic position as well, because everyone has a position to defend, not only to attack from behind a bag of sand, but he has something to defend, and his fort has to be fortified as well. And if his fort is weak, if the foundations of atheism are weak, then that needs to be highlighted as well. Because if we do not have proper foundations for morality, which we find in religion, then take religion away, then what are the foundations of morality in atheism, for example? So that needs to be questioned. I mentioned a book by Sam Harris on free will, in which Sam Harris argues that free will does not exist. What we sense as our own free will is only an illusion. But the book itself is in fact quite problematic. And that position itself is problematic.
So in this book, what you're saying is he keeps attacking Islam and Maajid defends it, but there's no attack back or a sort of critical questioning about atheism in and of itself.
Yes, of course, if I prompted you to use the word attack here, I want to backtrack on that a little bit. Perhaps it's a little bit too much to say, but he keeps questioning. And sometimes he makes snide remarks, which is true. Like, he would speak of, people of religion, of Muslims particularly being somewhat stupid or something of this nature. But of course, he's referring to those who are, prone towards violence and prone towards extremism and so on. But in so doing, he is, putting a kind of a wet blanket on that conversation, but Maajid always ignores those snide remarks and comes back with the facts showing that there are many different tendencies within the grand body that we know as the Muslim worldwide community, or the Ummah. There are some who are Islamists, and he defines his terms very carefully. Islamists, according to him, are those who want to impose their particular view of Islam on the wider populace. Then there are jihadists, and according to him, jihadists are those who would use violence to further the Islamist cause. So therefore, not every Islamist is a jihadist. Mm-hmm. Some Islamists want to impose their view of Islam on the wider populace, but they wouldn't resort to violence in furthering that means. They might resort to political activism. They want to change things like from the ground up, for example, but they have the broader aim of imposing their vision of Islam. And the jihadists come in with the violence to further the Islamist cause. Then there are extremists. And Maajid points out that extremism is a wider problem than just the problem of the jihadists. And he thinks that the problem of extremism actually feeds into the Islamism and then gives birth to the jihadism as well. So it's a
sort of a cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And how does he address, in light of all of these issues, I know one area that the book said it talks about is the potential for reform in Islam. How does Maajid deal with that? Because I'm sure from Sam Harris's perspective, it's probably very different than the way Maajid would have dealt with it.
Yes, from Maajid's point of view, Islam itself is a religion. It's neither a religion of peace nor a religion of violence. It's what people make of it. And there are many different ways of interpreting Islam. Some people may interpret it as a violent religion. And to him, that's a valid interpretation. Interpretations are as they are. It depends. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. Not his words here, but that helps to encapsulate what he's saying. And of course, the vast majority of Muslims view their religion as a religion of peace. So if the religion is defined by the views of the followers, then we'd have to say that it is a religion of peace. And that is the position that he had defended in the debate leading to Sam Harris now questioning him. But according to Maajid, there is so much in the Quran itself and in classical Islamic literature to justify the position that Islam is about peace and not about war, that this actually is the overriding position that we should take. And he points out that even among the jihadists, there are different approaches. He points out that Al-Qaeda, to the surprise of many, is actually against ISIS, and Al-Qaeda is recoiling from some of the horror and violence committed by ISIS in the name of Islam. So they're both jihadist entities, but one has gone so far overboard that the other appears to be mild compared to this extreme take on the use of violence.
Do you think, so the book does what it set out to do, which is, I quote, inspiring a wider public discussion by way of example?
Yes, I think it sets a good example of civility and dialogue. And many reviewers actually found Maajid's approach to be quite refreshing. One reviewer said, well, we know of Harris's position. We've read so much about it, heard so much of him speaking. But it was refreshing to hear Maajid and his position and to see the civility with which he, as a Muslim, conducts himself in this dialogue.
If you had to rate the book from 1 to 10, what would you rate it?
Well, I would give it a 9, and I would mention that it needs a little bit of editing. There are typos that I've noticed throughout the book, which is unusual for a book published by a reputable publisher. And it even at one place states the incorrect statement factually, that the foundation for which Maajid works, Quilliam, is a charity in the United States. Actually, what they meant is the UK, not the US. But, you know, there's a typo right there, and a serious one.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.